Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today, I'm going to be showing you a winning list for one of my very favourite, one of the most interesting Pokemon coming out from Sword and Shield. It's Polteageist. And apparently it's actually good, which makes me delighted. Also, if you're not in the mood to give up any prizes, might be the deck for you. So Polteageist then, let's remind ourselves what it does. It does have a nice little first attack for 1 colourless energy that lets both players draw 2 cards, but that's not really the reason we're playing this here. The real reason we're playing it here is 1 psychic, 1 colourless energy, your opponent reveals his or her hand. This attack does 50 damage times the number of trainer cards in your opponent's hand. And at this stage, it might be starting to sound like, hang on a second, that seems a little bit familiar. Well, it is, ladies and gentlemen. It is a little bit familiar. It's the same attack we've seen on Gengar and Mimikyu. And it's actually a better attack cost because it's Psychic Colourless rather than Psychic. Of course, you've literally got 1/4 of the HP, which is, let's just say, not entirely ideal. But essentially here, you hope to find your opponent with a handful of trainers, and you do ridiculous damage. Now, there are 2 major downsides to Polteageist. One is ridiculously low HP. The other one is that we don't really have any great energy acceleration. You could play this with Malamar, but the deck that I'm showing you today does not play Malamar. Now, we're going to go slightly out of the usual order here and say that actually the lower HP can be a huge bonus, because of Professor Round's lecture. It is a supporter card that lets you search your deck for 3 Pokemon with 60 HP or less and put them into your hand. So okay, it's a very, very, very low HP and a very, very, very weak Pokemon, but it is one that can be searched out using Professor Round's lecture. So, yeah, that actually gives you some really nice consistency here. Now, this alone will not make the deck, though it is very good. There are 2 other Pokemon that are extremely important here to actually make this work. The first of which is Omastar, and Omastar shouldn't terribly surprise you here. Omastar's got the ability Fossil Bind. As long as you have fewer Pokemon in play than your opponent, they can't play any item cards from their hand. And this does 2 things. Firstly, it stops your opponent playing item cards, meaning that they're not actually able to get set up as they might like. And secondly, it keeps item cards in their hand, meaning that you hit a whole bunch more damage using Polteageist. Yeah, that's not bad, ladies and gentlemen. That's not bad at all. Incidentally, the attack is Polteageist. It's the same one we've seen on a bunch of Pokemon, including Gengar and Mimikyu. And as a side note, Omastar does see play with Gengar and Mimikyu. This is not, shall we say, a completely new... It's not a completely new combo. And then the other Pokemon we really need here is Shedinja. Shedinja is what stops this from being a could work too awkward deck to a, ooh, maybe it's got a chance deck. You see, Shedinja's got the ability Vessel of Life. Once during your turn, you may discard all cards attached to this Pokemon and attach it to one of your Pokemon as a Pokemon tool. When the Pokemon this card is attached to is knocked out, your opponent takes 1 fewer prize card. So essentially, your opponent doesn't take a prize when they knock out Polteageist. This is huge. This is absolutely huge. It means that even though you might take a turn or 2 without attacking because of the energy, it's not the end of the world because you're not giving up a prize. It means your opponent might go on a run where they take 4 or 5 knockouts in 4 or 5 turns, but again, it is significantly less of an issue because you're not giving up prizes. Polteageist is really fun, but Shedinja and Omastar is what makes it amazing. If your opponent isn't able to play item cards, doesn't take prizes when they can get an attack, and then is on the receiving end of attacks doing 250, 300 damage or more, that is not a game that's going to last all that long, and it ain't going to be very much fun for your opponent. Now, we do also play Oricorio GX here. When you've had a Pokemon KO'd, you get to use Oricorio to draw 3 cards the next turn. The thing that's really cool about Oricorio is it's not reliant on whether your opponent has taken a prize, it is reliant only on whether they took a KO. So even if you've got Shedinja attached and you're not giving up a prize, your opponent still took a KO, so you still get to use this. And then we do play one copy of Gengar and Mimikyu. Firstly, it's got a lot more HP. Secondly, you can still use Shedinja to turn it into a 2-prize Pokemon. And thirdly, you've got the nice little GX attack here that stops your opponent playing any cards next turn. Or if you've got 2 energy on, lets both players draw until they've got 7 cards in hand. Except your opponent won't be able to play any, and that's kind of hilarious. There is a great combo here with Horror House early, like turn 1 early, and then getting Omastar right out, so your opponent cannot play any trainer cards, and then by the time it comes back to them, they're actually item locked. You know that sounds like fun, ladies and gentlemen. Don't even pretend that you don't. That sounds like fun. Now, in terms of energy here, it's largely psychic energy, obviously, but we do play a couple of recycle energy here. And the reason is that you are going to have a lot of Polteageist knocked out during the game. Ordinarily, we would hope your opponent has to KO 6 before they win, but honestly, with things like Shedinja, it could be 10, 11, 12 Polteageist knocked out before your opponent actually gets to do very much here, before they actually get to win the game. I know, right? That is why this becomes so gosh darned important. It is why recycle energy is so good. It keeps bouncing back to your hand, meaning that even though your opponent is taking a lot of KOs, they're not taking prizes, and they're not running you out of energy. Why, yes, ladies and gentlemen, that does sound like fun. Looking at the trainer line here, there are a couple that are particularly important. Obviously, Unidentified Fossil becomes huge. That is what you use to get your Omastar out. And as a side note, we are using Rare Candy here. We're not using Omanyte. We are just going Unidentified Fossil into Omastar. The other thing to remember here is you need to try and have as few Pokemon in play as possible. But because you've got the option of attaching Shedinja as a tool, and because Unidentified Fossil can essentially just be gotten rid of pretty easily, you are in a great position here to have fewer Pokemon in play. Everything in the deck, bar Nincada, is Psychic Pokemon, so Mysterious Treasure becomes great for searching them out. And Surprise Box becomes a really, really good card here. Lets you grab a card from your opponent's discard pile and put it into their hand. It guarantees that they've got one more trainer card in their hand, which guarantees that you do an extra 50 damage. Cool. I like in decks like this playing Lavender Town so you can look and see what's in your opponent's hand and see how much damage you'll be doing. But one important thing to note about this deck, you don't really have any other attacks you're ever going to use other than Mimikyu and Gengar's GX attack. So it doesn't matter how many cards they've got in their hand, it's not going to affect your decision, so you might as well just go for it. And Rosa becomes a particularly good card here, because if you had a Pokemon KO during your opponent's previous turn, you search your deck for a Pokemon, a trainer card, and a basic energy and put them into your hand. And once again, this is dependent on your opponent having taken a KO. It is not dependent on your opponent having taken a prize. And that is a very, very big difference, ladies and gentlemen. A very big difference. So go team, quite frankly. Now, the other card that is absolutely crucial in this deck is the new Fishing Rod card. Fishing Rod lets you take 2 Pokemon and 2 basic energy up to and shuffle them into your deck. Getting the energy back could be crucial if you get too many of your Pokemon KO'd, but it's also very, very important for getting back things like Polteageist and Shedinja. Remember, you really want to be rocking along here with as many Polteageist and Shedinja as you can, and this is the best you've got in terms of item cards, at least, for recovering them. Although, as a side note, I would definitely put a Ditto in this deck, given how many Stage 1 Pokemon you're playing. Ditto Prism Star could be a really, really nice play here. And I suppose it's probably just fair to mention Professor Oak's lecture again, because it's so good at searching out your Pokemon. Because one thing I didn't mention earlier, but is very much worth mentioning now, Shedinja's got 40 HP. So it can also be searched out with Professor Oak's lecture. It's a really good card in this deck. This is a very nice deck. It is a very cool deck. Whether it will be one of the top decks or whether it will remain a fringe deck needs to be seen. I worry that even if you're stopping your opponent taking prizes, it's still going to be a little bit slow trying to get all of the energy on there constantly. Trying to always have 2 energy on there. But I still think it's a very cool deck. It's one that I'm going to be playing around with, and frankly, I would suggest it might be one that you might want to have a play around with. So let me know in the comment section. Go nuts, be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at @TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, or you can do exactly that. And please do consider checking out youtube.com/WassyPlays, where you can, well, find out about games that don't have Pokemon in, but are still pretty gosh darned awesome. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.